I've never told anyone this story, not the full version. My therapist knows bits and pieces, enough to understand why I triple-check the locks on my apartment door every night, and why I haven't stepped foot in a forest in 2 years. But tonight, I'm writing it down. Maybe if I put it somewhere outside my head, I'll stop dreaming about it. You won't believe me. That's fine. I barely believe it myself. The cabin was a last-minute find on Airbnb. Late November, Oregon Coast Range. Dense Douglas fir forest, 40 minutes up a winding gravel road from the nearest town, with a population barely scraping 4 digits. My brother Matt found the listing. "Look at this place, Elle," he'd said, shoving his phone in my face. A-frame cabin, fireplace, no cell service, actual peace and quiet. I needed it. Graphic design work had been eating me alive for 6 months straight. Matt, between construction jobs, needed it too. 2 burnout siblings, a bottle of whiskey, and the woods. What could go wrong? We arrived around 5 p.m., the sun already bleeding out behind the tree line. The cabin was exactly as advertised, rustic, clean, isolated. A single A-frame structure with a small porch, a chimney, and windows that looked out into nothing but trees and fog. The kind of place where you immediately feel like someone is watching you, but you tell yourself it's just the unfamiliarity. The owner, a guy named Travis, had left the key in a lockbox by the door. His instructions were simple. Lockbox code is 0923. Door sticks a bit. You gotta lift the handle up, then pull. Enjoy your stay. He wasn't kidding about the door. It was old, solid wood, with a heavy iron latch and a sliding bolt on the inside. The frame had shifted over the years, so the door never sat quite flush. You had to yank it closed, lift the handle, and then slide the bolt home with a satisfying thunk. "We're gonna die of carbon monoxide poisoning if we seal this place up too tight," Matt joked, wrestling with the latch. "Better than freezing to death," I said. The inside smelled like cedar and old smoke. There was a stone fireplace, 2 single beds pushed against opposite walls, a tiny kitchenette, and a bathroom barely big enough to turn around in. Cozy, safe. We unpacked, built a fire, and opened the whiskey. By 10 p.m., the rain had started, a soft, persistent patter on the roof that made the cabin feel even more like a cocoon. Matt slid the bolt across the door, tested it twice, and announced, "Fortress secured." I remember thinking, this is exactly what I needed. I remember that thought so clearly now. It makes me sick. I woke up cold, not just the fire went out cold. There was a draft, a sharp, wet draft cutting across my face from the direction of the door. I sat up. The door was open, not wide open, maybe 4 inches, just enough to see the gray morning light bleeding through, just enough to feel the damp November air pouring in. The bolt was retracted. Matt was still asleep, wrapped in his sleeping bag like a burrito, completely oblivious. My first thought was, he got up to piss in the night and didn't lock it properly. Matt, he grunted, rolled over. "What?" "The door's open." That got him up. He stared at it, then at me, then back at the door. He walked over, pushed it shut, and examined the bolt. Huh? That's it?" He shrugged. "I probably didn't slide it all the way last night. Wood expands and contracts with temperature, right? Maybe the frame shifted." I wanted to believe him. That's the thing about fear in broad daylight. It's easy to rationalize. But then I looked down. On the floor, just inside the door, there were leaves, wet brown oak leaves, and dirt, and small twigs. But here's what got me. They weren't scattered randomly like the wind had blown them in. They were swept into a small pile, as if someone had tried to gather them together. And next to the pile was a single muddy footprint, a boot print, adult-sized, pointing into the cabin. "Matt, look at the floor." He looked. His face changed, just for a second. "Wind doesn't do that," I said. "No," he agreed quietly. "It doesn't." We searched the cabin. Nothing missing. No other signs of entry. The windows were locked. The back door, a smaller exit off the kitchen, was still bolted from the inside. Whoever had been here had come through the front door, stood in our space while we slept, and then left, leaving the door slightly open, leaving a mess they'd tried, poorly, to clean up. "I'm calling the owner," I said, grabbing my phone. No service, of course. Matt found a landline in the kitchen, one of those old rotary phones you see in museums. He picked it up, dead. "Travis said there was a phone," he muttered. "Guess he lied." We debated leaving right then. Honestly, we should have. But it was raining harder now. The gravel road would be slick, and Matt, practical, stubborn Matt, convinced me it was probably a one-time thing. Maybe a maintenance guy with a spare key who didn't realize anyone was renting. Maybe Travis himself checking on the property. "We'll double lock tonight," he said. "I'll wedge a chair under the handle." I agreed. I shouldn't have, but I agreed. We spent the day hiking a nearby trail, trying to shake the unease. The forest was beautiful in a suffocating way, everything wet and green and dripping. We didn't see another person, didn't hear a single car. By 4 p.m., the light was already dying, and we headed back. That night, Matt was true to his word. After locking the bolt, he grabbed one of the wooden kitchen chairs and wedged it under the door handle at an angle, the back of the chair pressed tight against the floor. He tested it, pulled hard from the inside. The door didn't budge. "Let's see someone open that," he said, satisfied. I slept in my clothes. Boots next to the bed, my keys in my pocket, the one with the tiny pepper spray canister attached. I woke up at 6:17 a.m. I know the exact time because I looked at my watch immediately. The door was open again. Same distance, 4 inches, same cold draft, same pile of wet leaves and dirt on the floor. The chair was no longer wedged under the handle. It had been moved, carefully, quietly, to the side of the door frame, resting against the wall as if someone had placed it there deliberately. Matt was already awake, sitting on the edge of his bed, staring at the chair. His face was pale. "I didn't hear anything," he said. His voice was flat. "I'm a light sleeper, Elle. You know that. I didn't hear a goddamn thing." My hands were shaking, not trembling, shaking, full on, can't hold a coffee cup shaking. "We're leaving." "No." "What do you mean, no?" He stood up and walked to his duffel bag. "We're not leaving until we know what's happening." He pulled out a GoPro. "I brought this for trail footage. It's got night vision. Battery lasts 8 hours. We set it up tonight, pointed at the door and our beds. We find out exactly who's doing this." I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to grab the keys and drive myself out of there, but some part of me, the part that needed to know, kept me rooted to the floor. "One more night," I said. "Then we're gone, no matter what." Setting up the camera felt like preparing for a seance. Matt positioned it on top of the wardrobe, an old oak monstrosity near the bathroom, angled down toward the door and the foot of our beds. He turned off the red recording light so it wouldn't be visible in the dark. At 11 p.m., he hit record. Neither of us slept. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to every creak and groan of the cabin settling. The rain had stopped, replaced by a heavy, muffled silence that only deep forests can produce. No wind, no animals, nothing. At some point, I must have drifted off from pure exhaustion. I woke to Matt shaking my shoulder. It was 7:23 a.m., gray light through the windows. The door was open, 4 inches, leaves on the floor. "The camera," I said. We didn't even check the rest of the cabin. Matt grabbed the GoPro, and we huddled on his bed, the tiny screen between us. He rewound to 2 a.m. and hit play. The footage was grainy, lit by the pale green glow of infrared. I could see our sleeping forms, 2 lumpy shapes under blankets. The door closed, the chair wedged firmly. 2:47 a.m., nothing. 3:02 a.m., nothing. 3:15 a.m., nothing. 3:17 a.m. The door handle moved. I grabbed Matt's arm so hard I left bruises. On the screen, the handle rotated downward, slowly, deliberately. The door pushed inward, but the chair caught it. There was a pause. Then the door closed again. We heard nothing on the audio. 10 seconds passed. 20. Then the door opened smoothly, this time inward and with enough force to slide the chair across the floor. The sound it made was barely a whisper, just a soft scrape of wood on wood. A figure stepped inside. A man, tall, broad shoulders, wearing a dark jacket and work boots. His face was mostly shadow, but the infrared caught the glint of something in his right hand. A key. He stood just inside the doorway for a long moment. Then he took 2 slow steps into the room, stopping at the foot of my bed. He didn't move, didn't crouch, didn't reach for anything. He just stood there, looking down at me, for 5 full minutes. I watched the timestamp in the corner of the screen tick forward. 3:18, 3:19, 3:20, 3:21, 3:22. His chest rose and fell. He was breathing. At 3:23, he turned and walked back to the door. He stepped outside, pulling the door behind him, but he didn't close it all the way. He left it open exactly 4 inches. The video continued for another 4 hours. Nothing else happened. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. My entire body was ice. Matt's hand was trembling on the camera. "There's more," he said. His voice cracked. "I watched it already. There's more." He fast-forwarded to 5:41 a.m. The door, still open 4 inches. The room, still and silent. And then, from outside the frame, something swept into view. A pine branch, a makeshift broom. It pushed the leaves and dirt on the floor into a small pile near the door, then retreated back into the darkness outside. He came back. He came back to clean up after himself. We didn't pack. We grabbed our phones, our wallets, the GoPro, and the car keys. I remember Matt shoving the chair aside and yanking the door open so hard it slammed against the exterior wall. I remember the cold air hitting my face. I remember the gravel biting through my socks because I hadn't put on boots. The Subaru was parked 20 feet from the cabin. Matt drove. I sat in the passenger seat, clutching the GoPro like a talisman, not looking back. The road was wet. The tires slipped twice on the descent. Neither of us spoke. The silence in that car was heavier than anything in the forest. 40 minutes later, we hit pavement. 5 minutes after that, my phone exploded with notifications, voicemails, texts, emails, all flooding in as we re-entered the world of Signal. Matt pulled over at a gas station. He called Travis. I listened to his side of the conversation. I'll never forget it. "Hey, Travis." "Yeah, it's Matt. We just left the cabin. Someone's been coming in at night. We have it on camera. A man with a key. He stood over my sister while she slept. We're calling the police." Pause. "What?" Longer pause. That's not okay. That's not a reasonable explanation. Pause. "I don't care if he's harmless. He was in our room. He was watching us." Pause. "He's what?" Matt's face went gray. He ended the call without saying goodbye. "What?" I demanded. "What did he say?" Matt stared at the dashboard. "He said, 'That's my father. He still has a key. He checks on the property sometimes. He's old, he gets confused. He's not dangerous.'" "Still has a key? We rented the whole cabin. We had the only key." "No," Matt said quietly. Travis said his father was the previous owner. He sold the place to Travis 5 years ago, but kept a copy of the key. He lives about 2 miles up the mountain. Sometimes he walks down at night. Travis said he's harmless. I thought about the figure on the screen, standing at the foot of my bed, breathing, watching me sleep, for 5 minutes. Harmless. We filed a police report in the town at the base of the mountain. The officer, a tired-looking man named Deputy Keller, took the GoPro as evidence and nodded along as we told our story. He said he'd look into it. 2 weeks later, I got a call. They couldn't press charges, no forced entry, no theft, no assault. The man had a key legally obtained, and Travis refused to cooperate with any investigation that might incriminate his father. The old man had dementia, Travis claimed. He didn't understand what he was doing. Did he understand how to use a key? I asked the deputy. Did he understand how to move a chair without waking anyone? Did he understand how to sweep leaves into a pile to hide his tracks? "I understand your frustration, ma'am," Keller said, "but there's nothing we can do." I hung up. That was 2 years ago. I live in a city now. Third-floor apartment. I have 3 locks on my door and a security bar that wedges under the handle at night. I sleep with a lamp on. I haven't been camping since. I haven't been in a forest since. Matt doesn't talk about it. Neither do I, usually. But here's what keeps me up at night, the thing I can't shake, the thing that makes me check the locks 3 times before bed even now. A month after we fled, I got curious. I Googled the property records for that cabin, public information. I found the previous owner's name, Harold Vance. I found his obituary. He died in 2019, 3 years before we rented that cabin. I called Deputy Keller back, told him what I'd found. There was a long silence on the line. "Miss," he said slowly, "the man Travis identified as his father, the man in your video. His name is Harold Vance. We ran the ID. It matches. But here's the thing. Harold Vance died in a car accident in 2019. We pulled the death certificate ourselves." "Then who came into our cabin?" I whispered. "I don't know, ma'am. The case is closed." "It's been 2 years. I still don't know who stood at the foot of my bed that night. I don't know who had the key. I don't know who swept the leaves into a pile at 5:41 in the morning. But I know this. Somewhere in the Oregon woods, there's a cabin with a door that doesn't close right. And someone, something, still has a key. I'm never going back to find out who." I don't talk about the Adirondacks anymore. My coworkers think I'm just not an outdoors guy, prefer my dual monitors and climate control, which is fine by me. But the truth is, I haven't set foot in any forest since that October. And I don't think I ever will again. This happened 8 months ago, but I still check the back seat of my car before I drive anywhere. I still wake up at 3:15 in the morning sometimes, heart pounding, convinced I heard footsteps outside my 7th-floor apartment window. Which is impossible. I know it's impossible. But that's the thing about real fear. It doesn't give a shit about logic. My dad Gary and I had been doing this hunting trip for 12 years. Every late October, a week before deer season officially opened, we'd head up to a spot his own father had shown him back in the 70s. It's way the hell out there, past Newcomb, past the last paved road, 6 miles down a dirt track that doesn't appear on any GPS. The kind of place where your phone becomes a paperweight about 11 miles before you arrive. Dad's 62 now, retired mechanic. Wears the same Carhartt jacket he's had since I was in high school. Smokes Marlboro Reds like they're going out of style. He's the practical one. I'm the IT guy who spends 50 hours a week remoting into servers and debugging other people's code. The woods are my escape from all that, a place where the biggest problem is getting the fire started or remembering which way the wind's blowing. We pulled in around 5:30 on Friday evening. The sun was already bleeding out behind the tree line, and the temperature was dropping fast. 28 degrees that night, according to the little thermometer I had clipped to my pack. Cold enough to see your breath, not cold enough to be dangerous if you knew what you were doing. "Smells like snow," Dad said, stepping out of the F-150. He always said that. It never snowed this early. I grabbed the tent. Mountain Hardware Trango 2 had it for years, solid as hell, and started setting up while Dad got the fire going. We'd done this so many times we didn't need to talk. Just moved around each other, laying out gear, cracking open the cooler, finding the headlamps before it got fully dark. Something felt off, though. I noticed it right away, but didn't say anything. The woods were quiet, not peaceful quiet, not winter quiet. Just empty. No squirrels chattering, no birds. Even the wind seemed hesitant, like it was holding its breath. "You hear that?" I asked Dad as I hammered in the last stake. "Hear what?" "Exactly." He paused, listened for a second, then shrugged. "Cold's got everything bedded down. Stop being paranoid." I nodded. Made sense. Cold front moving in. Animals hunker down. Basic biology. Looking back now, I should have trusted my gut. I should have packed everything up right then and driven back to the motel in Newcomb, ordered a pizza, and called it a weekend. But I didn't. Because I'm a rational person, and rational people don't get spooked by quiet woods. Saturday morning was better. Coffee from the jet boil, eggs in the cast iron, Dad telling the same story about the 8-point buck he missed in '98. Normal stuff. Comfortable. Around 9, I grabbed the hatchet and headed out to collect firewood. We'd burned through more than expected the night before. The cold really had settled in. I walked maybe 40 yards northeast of camp, pushing through some undergrowth when I saw it. The tree was an old white oak, massive thing. Trunk had to be 3 feet across, bark rough and furrowed like an old man's face, and sticking out of it, right at my eye level, was a knife. Not just any knife, a Benchmade bushcrafter. I knew the model because I'd almost bought one myself the year before. $180, CPM-S, 30V steel, walnut handle, beautiful piece of equipment. Someone had driven it a good 1.5 inches into the wood, at exactly the height of a grown man's face, not higher, not lower. I stood there for a second, just looking at it. The blade was clean, no rust, no dirt, no sap, like it had been put there 5 minutes ago. The handle was warm, which made no sense, because everything else in that forest was ice cold. "You lose something?" I muttered to myself, then grabbed the handle and yanked. It came out with a soft scraping sound. I turned it over in my hands, no initials carved in the handle, no markings except the Benchmade logo. Just a perfectly good, expensive knife, abandoned in the middle of nowhere. "Finders keepers," I said, and stuck it in my pack. Back at camp, I showed it to Dad. He was sitting by the fire, smoking, squinting at me through the smoke. "Where'd you find that?" "Tree. About 40 yards out. Someone just stuck it there." He took the knife from me, examined it, then handed it back with a shrug. "Someone lost it. Or forgot it. Hunters leave shit behind all the time." At face height, in a tree, he shrugged again. "People are weird, Mason. Keep it if you want. It's a nice knife." So I kept it. I put it in the side pocket of my pack and didn't think about it again. We spent the rest of the day scouting for sign, checking trail cameras, doing all the things you do when you're pretending to hunt, but really just enjoying being away from everything. That night, I slept fine. Sunday morning changed everything. I woke up around 7, unzipped the tent, and stepped out to take a leak. The sky was that flat gray color that promises weather but never delivers. Frost on the ground, breath hanging in the air, and the knife was back in the tree. Same tree, same height, same knife. I recognized the grain pattern on the walnut handle. My first thought was that Dad was fucking with me. He had a weird sense of humor sometimes, but when I looked closer, I saw the piece of paper. It was folded once and pinched under the blade, fluttering slightly in the cold breeze. I pulled the knife out, easier this time, like the wood had been loosened, and unfolded the paper. One line. Block capital letters. Blue ballpoint pen. Put it back. I read it 3 times. Then I read it again. My hands were steady, but something cold was crawling up the back of my neck. "Dad." He came out of the tent, squinting, hair sticking up. "What?" I held up the knife, held up the note. He walked over, took them both, and looked at them for a long time. Longer than I expected. His face didn't change. He's never been expressive. But something shifted behind his eyes. "Put it back," he said. "What?" "Put the knife back where you found it. And we leave it alone. It's a prank, right? Some local kid." "We're 6 miles from the nearest road, Mason. Ain't no local kids out here." He handed me the knife. "Put it back, exactly where it was." I wanted to argue. I wanted to laugh it off and say someone was just messing with us. But Dad's voice had that tone, the one he used when he was dead serious and didn't want to explain why. So I walked back to the oak tree. I didn't stick the knife in the wood. I just laid it on top of a flat stump at the base of the trunk. Let whoever left it there find it. I wasn't going to play their game. The rest of Sunday was tense. Dad was quiet. I was on edge. We still hunted, walked a few miles, checked some blinds, but neither of us was really into it. The woods felt different now. Watched. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my sleeping bag, listening. The wind had picked up, rattling the bare branches. Every few minutes I'd hear something that sounded like footsteps, then tell myself it was just the forest settling. I checked my watch constantly. 1:47, 2:22, 3:08. At 3:15, I heard footsteps. Not branches, not wind. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, crunch, crunch, crunch on the frozen leaves, getting closer. I held my breath. My heart was slamming against my ribs so hard, I was sure whoever was out there could hear it. The footsteps stopped. Right outside the tent, maybe 3 feet from where I was lying, I could hear breathing, shallow, steady, not wind, not an animal, a person. I didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe. The seconds stretched into hours. And then, just as slowly, the footsteps moved away. Back into the trees, fading into nothing. I didn't sleep at all after that. Monday morning, I unzipped the tent with shaking hands. The knife was gone from the stump, but something else was there. On the side of the tent, the side where I'd been sleeping, where my head had been inches from the fabric, someone had cut a letter into the material, clean lines, deliberate, like they'd taken their time. Dad came up behind me. He didn't say anything for almost a minute, just stared at it. "We're leaving," I said. "No." His voice was flat. "We're going to figure out who this is first." "Dad, you want to spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, wondering?" He pulled on his jacket. "There's tracks. Let's see where they go." He was right. In the frost, leading away from the tent toward the northeast, was a clear set of boot prints, men's, size 11 or 12. Deep impressions. Whoever made them was heavy or carrying weight. I didn't want to follow them. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to get in the truck and drive. But Dad was already moving, and I wasn't about to let my 62-year-old father walk into the woods alone. We followed the tracks for maybe 400 meters, through thick underbrush, past a dry creek bed, up a slight rise. The whole time, that silence. No birds, no squirrels, just the sound of our own footsteps and breathing. The cabin appeared suddenly. One minute it was just trees, the next, there it was. Old, maybe from the 70s. Half the roof was caved in, but someone had patched part of it with a blue tarp. A rusted stovepipe stuck out at an angle. The windows were dark. Dad held up a hand. We stopped, listened. Nothing. He pushed the door open. It swung without resistance. The inside smelled like old smoke and unwashed clothes and something else, something sweet and rotten that I couldn't identify. A sleeping bag was laid out in the corner, stained, torn. Empty cans of beans and soup stacked neatly against one wall. Candles, lots of candles, melted wax everywhere. And then there was the wall, 20 knives, maybe more, stuck into the wooden planks or hanging from nails. Different models, some hunting knives like the one I'd found, some tactical, some cheap folding blades, all arranged in a grid, and under each knife, a piece of paper, handwritten, the same block capitals as the note I'd found. Dad walked closer. I followed, my legs feeling like they belonged to someone else. "Andrew," Dad read, 2019. He moved to the next one. "Marcus, 2021. Next. "Timothy, 2022. I counted. 18 knives with names. 19. 20 slots total, but only 19 knives. One spot was empty. In that empty spot, pinned to the wood, were 2 pieces of paper. The first one read, Mason, 2024. The second one, Collection Incomplete. My name. My name was on that wall, under a spot waiting for a knife. My knife, the one I'd pulled out of the tree. I couldn't breathe. My chest was tight, my vision blurring at the edges. I grabbed Dad's arm. "We have to go, now, right now." This time, he didn't argue. We ran, not jogged, ran. Stumbling over roots, branches whipping at our faces, The sky had darkened and a cold, needling rain had started. By the time we reached camp, my hands were numb and my lungs were burning. "Pack everything," Dad said. 7 minutes. Leave anything you can't grab in 2. I ripped the tent down, didn't bother folding it, just stuffed it in the stuff sack. Sleeping bags, stove, everything into the back of the F-150. Dad grabbed his pack, my pack, the cooler. We didn't speak, just moved. 4:30, but it looked like night already. The rain was coming down harder now, turning the ground to mud. I threw my pack in the truck bed and turned to grab the last bag. A branch cracked, 20 meters to my left, sharp, deliberate. I froze. A figure stood between the trees, tall, broad, wearing dark, shapeless clothing. No visible face, just a shape that didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't blink. "Dad!" My voice came out strangled. "Gary, he's here." The figure took one step forward, then stopped. I grabbed the Remington from the truck cab. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it twice. I pumped the action. The sound was loud in the quiet rain. "Get in the truck," I shouted. "Get in the truck now." The engine turned over. Dad threw it in reverse. The figure moved, not toward us, but sideways, disappearing behind a thick pine. I jumped in the passenger seat. Dad floored it. The truck fishtailed in the mud, then caught, and we were flying down that dirt track, branches scraping the sides, rain hammering the roof. A mile from the main road, half a mile, a quarter, and then he was there, standing in the middle of the track, right in our headlights, the same figure, the same dark clothes, and in his right hand, a knife, held down at his side, but clearly visible, pointed toward the ground, waiting. Dad didn't slow down. I closed my eyes. A sound, a thump, or maybe not a thump, maybe just the truck hitting a rut. I don't know. I didn't open my eyes until we hit asphalt. When I looked in the side mirror, there was nothing but rain and darkness and the road stretching back into the trees. I noticed my right hand was bleeding, a deep cut across the palm, probably from grabbing branches on the way out of the cabin. I hadn't felt it happen. I still didn't feel it. We drove 4 hours to Albany without stopping. Dad didn't speak. I didn't speak. When he dropped me at my apartment, he just said, "Get some sleep," and drove away. I didn't sleep. I sat on my couch with all the lights on until sunrise. 8 months. I sold the Remington, sold all my camping gear, moved to a new apartment on the 7th floor, windows facing an interior courtyard. I sleep with my laptop screen on, brightness turned low. I check the locks 3 times before bed, sometimes 4. Dad and I still talk, but we don't talk about that weekend. It's like it never happened. Like there's an entire 24 hours of our lives we've mutually agreed to erase. But I found something. A month after we got back, I was looking for my registration in Dad's truck. In the glove box, tucked behind the insurance card, was a folded piece of paper. I opened it. Block capitals, blue pen. "Thanks for visiting. Come back soon. I'll keep your spot warm." I didn't tell Dad. I threw the note in a dumpster behind a gas station 3 towns over. I washed my hands 4 times afterward. I still don't know who he was. The police in Newcomb would probably say it's some old hermit, harmless, been living out there for years. But I never filed a report. What would I say? That a man collected knives with names on them? That my name was there too? And sometimes, late at night, when I'm lying awake at 3:15 in the morning, I wonder about the other 19 names, Andrew, Marcus, Timothy. I wonder where they are now. I wonder if they ever went back to the Adirondacks. I wonder if he's still out there, waiting, with an empty spot on his wall,